Hello. All right, let's see. Do I have Sac State MR? All right, we'll wait. Can I hear you? I heard you typing. I don't hear your voice.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, I can. Okay.
Sorry, I've been having problems with my mic today.
No worries, it's okay. And then do I also have College of Idaho MD?
Here as well.
I put a speech drop link in the chat. I don't know if you can see it. Do you need me to erase it?
I can see it.
Okay, I said it just in case.
Okay. I'm sorry. Idaho, can you say again? I just want to make sure I can hear your mic.
Yeah, sorry. I started talking, but then they also started talking. So.
Yes. No worries. Okay. And we are being live streamed. Yay. Well, nobody's here, so who cares? Does anyone have any questions for me before we begin the round?
I do not believe so.
Okay. Cool.
Let me submit my speech drop right now.
Yeah.
Just let me know when you guys have it up, and I'm ready whenever you are.
All right, give me a sec. It's the one that says employment app?
Sorry.
It has a different name than your file, so I just want to make sure we're on the same.
Yeah, it's semiconductor 1AC. That's what it should say.
Okay. Yeah, the first thing calls it like the employment app. So I was
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. That's what.
Cool.
Oh yeah, the employment visa.
Okay. Cool. So you're novices. The only thing for me that I need you all to adapt for me is I'm not good at flowing speed over internet. So the tags, y'all are novices, right? Yeah. So the tags, which is like the written out description, usually in bold, and the author names and date, that part, the tag in the site, I need that at a relatively slow pace. Like, you can do a little bit faster than I'm talking, but not much faster than what I'm talking about right now.
Okay.
I'll call slow. You can go through your cards as fast as you want. But also any blocks, any analytics, those I need also at sort of like a slowed down pace.
Okay.
Cool. Other than that, whenever you are ready.
Okay, awesome. Let me get my timer out then. I have 6 minutes on the clock. I'm going to be starting in 3, 2, 1. Inherent harms. The current employment-based immigration system is broken and suffers from backlog. Green card availability and per-country quotas restrict lawful permanent residency. The Economic Times 19. A permanent resident card allows a person to live and work permanently in the United States. The current system imposes a country cap on people who get green cards. The United States makes currently 140,000 green cards available every year to employment-based immigrants. The existing law provides that not more than 7% of these green cards can go to nationals of any one country, even though some countries are more populous than others. Immigrants should not be penalized due to their country of origin. The immigration system is severely broken. At the heart of this broken system are outdated employment-based immigration systems which suffer under decade-long backlogs. Plan. The United States federal government will implement immigration reform that moves substantial statutory restriction on legal immigration into the United States by removing lines 1 and 2 that restrict employment-based legal immigration to 140,000 annual permanent visas resident cards made available, and that removing line 2 that restricts the number of employment-based permanent residency cards that are made available to natives of any single foreign state at 7%. Solvency. Removing the per-country gap is not enough. A dramatic increase of green cards is also needed. Bureau 20. America's employment-based immigration system needs to address this emergency. Abandoning per-country limits would be a good first step, but Congress also needs to increase the number of green cards dramatically to resolve this crisis. Now is key. Removing the cap and per-country requirement solves for high-skilled immigrant backlogs, discrimination, and economic competitiveness. The Economic Times 19. We must eliminate discriminatory backlogs so that high-skilled immigrants are not vulnerable to exploitation and continue to contribute to the economy. In combination with the per-country limits, backlogs keep nuclear families apart for decades while preventing U.S. employers from accessing and retaining the employees they need to stay competitive. To ensure America remains globally competitive, we need to ease the backlogs and leverage the talent and expertise of our high-skilled immigrants, and remove the less vestiges of discrimination from our immigration system. Advantage, semiconductors. U.S. industry semiconductor leadership is on the brink. Domestic workforce can't sustain competitor challenges along the supply chain, which threatens progress in critical technologies. Hunt 20. U.S. semiconductor industry leadership is a tremendous economic and strategic asset that drives progress in AI and other critical technologies. Other countries increasingly challenge that leadership position across the supply chain. To remain at the leading edge in the key parts of the supply chain, the United States will have to strengthen semiconductor talent. The supply of American-born talent alone will not be sufficient in the near term to meet companies' workforce needs. High-skilled immigration reform is one of the best levers available to policymakers seeking to preserve U.S. leadership in the semiconductor industry. Continued leadership is not assured, but if the country can leverage its workforce strengths, then there is reason for optimism. The plan uniquely solves. The status quo is not addressing the backlog, which is key to supporting the semiconductor industry. Hunt 20. Reforms with the U.S. immigration system could support the semiconductor industry. One targeted reform could involve country-based caps on the number of employment-based green cards issued each year. Green card applicants have long exceeded the number of available slots. If Congress eliminated country-based caps, that would likely benefit the semiconductor industry. More ambitiously, policymakers could increase the number of available employment-based green cards. Such reforms would require large legislative efforts, politically infeasible today. Government subsidies are not enough. Only immigration reform can supercharge the domestic semiconductor industry. Lenacom 20. Congress earmarked billions of taxpayer dollars from American semiconductor manufacturers to heavily subsidize Chinese competitors, cheered by both fans of industrial policy and semiconductor industry. What's perhaps most striking about the current push to bolster U.S. chip makers is the absence of any discussion of one actual policy that's been actually seen to proven to supercharge the industry, and it's being hobbled by the federal government as we speak. High-skilled immigration. Impact scenario 1, leadership. China is threatening semiconductor leadership now. Maintaining the health of a domestic microchip industry is key to U.S. national security and global hegemony. Herman 20. The last time the American semiconductor industry found itself in the crisis was the 1980s. China's a very different story. Beijing's push to become totally self-sufficient in semiconductor talent and to command its heights of the microchip industry is a parcel of the larger push for global hegemony. We could face a situation in which U.S. tech companies have to rely on a chip supply chain that's shaky at best and an actual threat to national security at worst. Americans are realizing that our economic and national security future depends on the health and safety of our microchip industry. Losing the technological edge to China shifts the balance of power and guarantees extinction from nuclear Armageddon. Koenig 18. Shifts in balance of power are problematic because they undermine effective bargaining. New technologies threaten to create potentially destabilizing shifts in the balance of power. If Beijing believes emerging technologies provide it with a newfound local military advantage of the United States, it may be more than willing to initiate direct conflict with the United States. And once nuclear armed states are at war, there's an inherent risk of nuclear conflict. The concern is any technologies that can result in a meaningful shift in the broader balance of power. The consequence of Washington losing the race for technological superiority means nuclear Armageddon. Impact scenario 2, EVs. Semiconductors are key to electric vehicles. EV production is on the brink due to chip shortage. Bolstering manufacturing is key to meeting the rebounding demand for automotive chips. Ying 21. Semiconductors are the brains of modern electronics. In the automotive space, chips have made our cars exponentially safer, smarter, and more efficient, but a global shortage of certain semiconductors has impacted the automotive market, slowing production of some cars. The events leading to the current auto chip shortage began during the second quarter of 2020 when automotives understandably reduced production and chip purchases as the virus spread across the globe. Demand for automotive semiconductors rallied much more quickly than the most anticipated. The shortage is a reminder of the essential role semiconductors play in transportation. New vehicles increasingly rely on chip shortage for fuel efficiency, safety, and other features. The expected growth in electric cars will play an even bigger role in the global demand for chips. EVs are the internal link to reducing emissions. Conventional vehicles have limits, while EVs can be offset with decarbonizing efforts. Haustal 19. EV represents a substantial reduction in lifestyle greenhouse gas emissions. As electricity generation becomes less carbon intensive, electric vehicles vehicles will become preferable to all conventional vehicles in virtually all cases. There are limitations on how efficient petrol and diesel vehicles can become. Low carbon electricity and increased battery manufacturing efficiency can cut most of the manufacturing, nearly all electricity emissions from EVs. Extinction from climate change can be averted, but cutting emissions is key. It's not too late to mitigate climate catastrophe. Prefer a city on specificity and recency. God 19. A certain new climate report came out that's not too late for humans to make changes. The IPCC special report on the oceans and cryosphere in a changing climate details the most up-to-date understanding of climate. The report looks to 2100 to see where we will be. If major changes are made to mitigate contributing factors like carbon dioxide emissions, it's much easier to cope with the changes that will come by 2100. If adapting to a changing environment, and most importantly, to avert a planetary disaster. I'm just going to cut that short, that card short there. And then just let me know when you are ready for cross-sex.
Okay, let me get my timer.
Okay.
All right, so first I want to focus on your plan. You're talking about how you're going to be adding to line, or you're going to be just moving around lines and removing lines. So I want to know exactly how are you going to be doing this? Like, what governing body is doing this?
What governing body is removing the lines?
Yes.
Well, I think it takes all of the different bodies to do this, not just one in particular, I would say.
Well, I just want to know, like, realistically and logistically, how exactly is this plan going to be implemented?
Honestly, I'm not sure. If you look in the actual line removal in where it's stated, you can see the specifics on it. If you care to look into that.
Yeah, I'm looking at the document. We can just move on from that.
Okay.
So, and then you bring up an impact of EVs, and I just want to know, what ground do they hold in today's debate? Like, why should I care about this over human lives?
Well, actually, that's a really good question, because EVs are essential to saving human lives. Basically, the microchip industry, which is what I was talking about, is super important in producing these electric vehicles. EV vehicles are essential to cutting CO2 emissions. And with the growing climate crisis, it's clear that extinction really is inevitable without a drastic change in CO2 emissions.
Okay, cool. And so how exactly are you solving for, like, worker exploitation?
Worker exploitation, you said?
Yes, because when a lot of these people come in, it actually turns out that they're exploited. So how exactly are you going to be solving for detrimental harm like that?
I'm not exactly sure, like, what you're saying. Like, how are these people being exploited?
We'll just move on from that.
Okay.
So, how exactly are we going to have? Okay, first off, how long do you think it's going to take, realistically speaking, to get these people to be citizens if we are expanding immigration policy?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think it would actually be pretty urgent, because part of my plan is talking about removing that backlog. So it would help people come into the United States way faster than the typical process as of right now is. Okay.
And so why would this be, like, suddenly pushed to the front of everything that needs to be done? Like, why, like, how exactly is this going to be done so fast?
Well, it's really important that our government focuses on this in particular, because without
focus on this though?
Huh?
Will our government really focus on this though?
I mean, I hope they would, because the semiconductor industry is crucial to providing national security. They should do this not only for the immigrants' good and the rest of the world's good, but for America as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go ahead and take some prep time if you just want to let the clock run.
Yeah. Sorry, sweetie. You're a good girl.
Okay, I have 240 used.
Okay.
Cool. Let me get my case pulled up, and I believe I still need to put it in the document in the speech thing.
You're uploading now, you said?
Yes.
Cool.
All right, and with that, we're just gonna. I'm sorry.
Before you begin, just real quick, what is the order?
Oh, I was literally about to say that.
Oh, okay, cool.
So we're going my case, their case.
How many off-case positions do you have?
It kind of just depends on how much time I have for it, but a couple.
What would be the maximum number that you would try to get through?
I think 4 or 5.
So 5?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, with that, let's begin. You need this court backlog is at an unprecedented
Slow.
Immigrants wait years just to be heard in court. American Immigration Council in 2020 found that the backlog in U.S. immigration courts reached an all-time high in April 2020 with over 1.17 million open removal cases. On average, these cases had been pending for 734 days and remained unresolved. Individuals with an immigration court case who were ultimately granted relief waited more than 930 days on average for that outcome. Asylum seekers are left in limbo while their case is pending, and the backlogs and delays can cause prolonged separation of families and leave family members abroad in dangerous situations. Wait times have only grown worse, and COVID has put us at a brink of nearly 1 million immigration cases waiting to be heard in civil court. The partial shutdown of the immigration court in the wake of COVID-19 has already impacted hundreds of thousands of immigrants awaiting their day in court. More than a million immigrants will be waiting for their cases to be heard. Canceled hearings due to COVID-19 will certainly increase delays for months and probably years to come. Given currently available data is that 368,000 immigrants with cases now before the immigration court have already been adversely affected. However, this does not represent the full scope of the long-term impact of COVID-19 on the courts. Track estimates that once scheduling delays for the rest of the individuals on the court's backlog are taken into account 850,000 immigrants. Link. The affirmative plan removes immigration restrictions, meaning more immigrants are subject to U.S. immigration court system. Removing per country ceiling solves 400-year backlog and attracts additional skilled workers. This is Candle and 20. And we are going to go ahead and skip that. We're going to move on to the internal link. The immigration court system has been weaponized against immigrants by the Attorney General. This is Southern Poverty Law in 2019. The immigration system is fundamentally flawed. The Attorney General of the United States is required to craft a functioning immigration court system, yet every Attorney General has failed to do so. The immigration court system that persists today is plagued by decades of neglect under the Trump administration. The attorney generals have gone further by actively seeking to weaponize the immigration court system against asylum seekers and immigrants of color. Impacts. The first is going to be long-term detention leads to permanent psychological impacts on women and children and creates a unique form of systemic violence. This is Shepard in 2017. Women and children in detention often suffer from psychological problems such as depression and anxiety related to trauma they experience in the countries from which they fled, which is often compounded by their treacherous journeys to the United States. The effects of the trauma can be exacerbated by detention. The loss of control over one's life and circumstances and the feeling of being trapped can remind detainees of past trauma and retrigger feelings of victimization and shame. Second, systemic violence must be prioritized because it is a form of slow violence that disproportionately affects certain populations based upon the violence of humans. The affirmative plan perpetuates the systems that cause such extreme violence, and this is Riviere in 2020. Systemic violence refers to the harm people suffer from the social structure and the institutions sustaining and reproducing it. This type of violence prevents its victims from satisfying their basic needs and is an avoidable impairment of the fundamental means necessary for human existence. Although it does not convey an image of direct physical aggression, systemic violence is a case of suffering as a cause of suffering, disability, and premature death. Systemic violence, however, is founded through smooth functioning of economic and political systems and can be termed objective, as it appears not to require specific deliberations by individuals exerting it. We're going to go on and move to the third impact, which is rural access to healthcare to be vastly affected by visa delays. The system is overburdened right now. Doctors face delays on visas that are key, which affect rural communities the most. This is Jordan in 2017. Small town America relies on a steady flow of doctors from around the world to deliver babies, treat heart ailments, and address its residents' medical needs. The slowdown in the rural doctor pipeline shows how even a small, relatively uncontroversial change can ripple throughout the entire country. About 25% of the physicians practicing or training in the United States are foreign, but in some inner cities and most rural areas, that share is significantly higher. Each year, they doubted whether the agency can handle such a flood of requests. Strong rural healthcare is key to prevent pandemic flu and biocare. This is me in Knudsen in 2009. We're now facing new challenges to meet the public health needs of rural America, and these challenges are significantly driven by changing demographics. First, rural America is aging. There are also changes in the racial and ethnic groups residing in rural America. These demographic changes will at least require that cultural competence be included as a key component in the ongoing development of the rural healthcare public system. Emerging public health threats related to infectious diseases such as pandemic influenza, terrorism, or man-made threats related to terrorism. An essential element to address is an appropriately funded rural public health system with an adequately educated and trained rural public health force. Negative solvency. Trump is taking efforts in the status quo, or he was, to massively reduce the issuing of green cards and employment visas of any type. It is not about the cap. It's not about approving applications in the name of protecting American labor. Barron 20. President Trump on Monday ordered the heads of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and Department of Labor to protect the United States workers from any damage to wages or working conditions caused by employment of foreign citizens on the H-1B visa. 1976 federal law prohibits foreign citizens from holding jobs in the federal civil service, but many federal contractors employ large numbers of foreign workers. As employment rates decline and high-skilled immigrants are losing their jobs, the Trump administration is currently deporting them if they can't replace their former position within 60 days, despite it being a pandemic. Jordan 20. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the turn of consumption. Reforms to increase immigration also increases economic consumption. CED 20. Immigration is a driver of labor force expansion. Having more workers typically means more production, more wages, and more consumption. The share of the civilian labor force now born in the U.S. has grown faster than the share of the total population that is foreign-born. Consumption kills the environment, reducing immigration stops environmental destruction. McAlpin 14. All life on Earth depends greatly on the environment and its ecosystems. It won't matter how prominent green technology becomes if this nation has twice as many people living in it. If the population size continues to grow, then per capita consumption will have to decrease indefinitely. And we are going to go ahead and go on to the next card, which is further climate change causes extinction triggers cascading tipping point by Gabatis in 2018. Human-induced global warming can trigger other processes. The tipping point would be an existential threat to humanity. These tipping elements can potentially act like a row of dominoes. And with this, we're going to go ahead and just move on to the opponent's case for time's sake. So they started out with their case talking about how right now they want to increase green cards, but I want to go ahead and present some cards that are going to directly show why this is not a good thing. So right now, increasing the cap is actually not going to be bringing more H-1B applicants. The quality of life and economic stability have to be solved first. And this is why in 2009, respondents to the survey were not definitive on whether or not they would return to the U.S. if given a recent equivalent job opportunity. We'll cover these cards later more in depth, but it's going to be doing the opposite effect because they are going to be trying to allow so many people into the country without actually taking into account how long this is going to take, especially during pandemic times. And then we are going to go ahead and move on to their impact of leadership. Bailey in 2018 found that China being in a global leadership position is actually very helpful. And more on this in my second speech. Thank you. And I'm open for cross-examination.
Awesome. Let me get my timer out. Okay. Starting my timer now. So basically, this ad is that relies on the fact that if my plan gets passed, it'll cause a court backlog. Is that correct?
Well, either way, if you were to just expand immigration policy in any way, shape, or form, we're especially going to be seeing this now because of the backlog that's already been created because of the COVID-19 pandemic and just because the natural state of immigration courts. We all know that going through the courts takes a very long time, and doing this is going to slow that process down by quite a bit.
So where's the evidence suggesting like exactly how long it's going to slow it down by? It's like what cards on your thing say that?
I could find that, but it'd be hard to find a card that would say that just because like it hasn't happened yet, but just looking at the evidence right now, it's showing that by 2030 it could actually take like 400. It could take 400 years according to Condell and 20, and
But that's like with our restrictions.
just judging by that, we can guess that it would take a lot longer if we were to expand the system to include more people, because that's only with the limited applicants we have right now.
So that's just us guessing then, not like actual evidence. It's just us predicting.
No, that's actual evidence. It's not just a simple prediction. Like,
okay, but you're saying like that's how it is with the way our systems are right now with the restrictions, right?
Well, yeah, but did you think that's a quantifiable number to increase this? And then can you actually like estimate how long it will take for every single person to be processed if we were to expand it up that much? It's a hard number to quantify.
Okay, I'm just gonna move on. So can you kind of explain the link between the backlog and then violence, I guess?
Oh yeah, so I have a couple of cards that's talking about the process of being detained and just what that is like for the average person, and it actually highlights women and children. They go through a lot, and there's a lot of trauma that is in that process. And if we were to make that process any longer, which is what would happen if we were to go through your plan, it's just going to make it worse. And in turn, it's systemic violence, as I noted.
Okay. So, and then what is like the link of the consumption with my plan?
So more people equals more consumption, basically. If we were to add a bigger population, more consumption. And that can reasonably be inferred if we're accepting more people into the country.
Okay, I have like 6 seconds left, so I am gonna end to that then. And I think I'm gonna take my full 4 minutes of prep, but I'll let you know how many.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay, I just used all of my time. I am going to submit my document right now. Oops, I totally just... and then I'm going to be addressing on case and then doing some analytics, I guess, and some off case.
Okay, cool. Before you do that, I ended up flowing. So everything for me, everything except the disadvantage is on case. Everything else is just like solvency stuff. So I ended up flowing the solvency stuff on a separate sheet, like a solvency dump. And then starting with increasing the cap does not equal increasing HB1 visa. Starting with that argument is when I started flowing directly on your case. If you could just be really clear where you are in what because if you're extending case, I need to be in a different spot than if you're responding to the arguments, basically.
Okay, so I'm gonna do on case then and then respond to like the arguments. I mean, yeah. No, I'm gonna do the opposite, sorry. Respond to the arguments and then do some on case, I guess.
Okay, and then the court clog just said?
Yes, I'm doing that as well.
Cool.
Okay.
Awesome. No, I mean, that's at the bottom.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait. You know what? I think the court cap is at the top.
Okay.
I just put this together, so I'm like, I don't really know it very well. Okay, so I'm addressing the backlog first, actually.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me make sure I have the file first.
Okay, sounds good. Just let me know when you're ready.
Oh, I see. Okay. Sorry. Hold on. All right. So cool. Whenever you are ready.
Awesome. Then I am going to be starting my AR in 3, 2, 1. You'll be voting AF on your ballot. We are controlling that the current employment-based immigration system is broken. We have isolated that this risks extinction on several levels. It's try or die for the AF. Voting for the plan is the only option to prevent extinction. We outweigh on magnitude, probability, and reversibility. The framing of the AF is implicit, so we respond to their framing claims now. The status quo will continue absent the plan. The backlog created by the artificial caps on entry and out of application are discriminatory toward countries with high populations, which cause the entire employment-based immigration system to break down. The bottleneck created by these restrictions substantially limits immigration into the United States, which we say is key to economic competitiveness. USCIS backlog. This is an argument resolved by fiat. AF power of fiat functionally includes allocating sufficient resources to funding and enforcement of the plan text. Truffin 04. Affirmatives have the power to fiat anything that falls within the bounds of the resolution. If the resolution says that federal government should change something, then they can use any and all parts of the federal government to implement their plan. They can also fiat that enforcement agencies will do their best to enforce their mandates. Core backlog. This is a terminal no link. Immigrants' visas do not go through immigration court. Shroom 20. Foreign nationals must first obtain authorization to work in the U.S. pursuant to non-immigrant or immigrant visas. Several government agencies are involved with granting permission for foreign workers to work in the United States. Employers must seek certification through the U.S. DOL. The employer must petition for the USCIS for a visa. After a visa is granted, the U.S. Department of State DOS issues the visa pursuant to proper application. The USCIS is responsible for approving all immigrant and non-immigrant petitions. The U.S. DOS issues U.S. visas. First, but further warrants from our uniqueness in the shell of recency and specificity. This is a brink argument for U.S. U.S. tech innovation is on the brink. Restrictions on immigration risk steep decline. Watney 20. The coronavirus pandemic and the administration's botched response to it are damaging the engine of American innovation in 3 major ways. The flow of talented people from overseas is slowing. University hubs that produce basic research and development are financially turmoil, and the circulation of people and ideas on high productivity industrial clusters such as Silicon Valley have been impeded. The U.S. has consistently attracted the world's most inquiring minds and skilled workers. Increases the date filing checks for USCIS progress captivity. Removing the caps on green cards has a risk for solving the backlog. Shell 2020. The start of the government fiscal year leads to a major advancement in the USCIS fee increase for certain types of non-immigrant and naturalization petitions. USCIS has changed the premium processing service timeframe. Congress caps the number of green cards immigrant visa applicants seeking to receive a green card has exceeded the cap, thus constantly creating a backlog, especially for Chinese and Indian nationals. A significant drop in processing capacity attributed to COVID-19 related closures at consular bars. As a result, UCSIS has stated on its website that applicants may use the dates for filing, determining eligibility, thus significantly advancing the filing eligibility for employment-based applicants. The U.S. is losing the edge in semiconductor manufacturing now. The U.S. is responsible for leading the industry in innovation, but the workforce problems mean outsourcing manufacturing risks losing the edge. Because the paths to green card status are limited for employment-based immigrants, the status quo lacks the workforce leverage needed to maintain leadership in the short and long terms. Absent the plan, the status quo risks losing the tech race to China and shifting the balance of power. This leads to nuclear war. Your only option is to vote F on the ballot. We'll be going for the leadership scenario. You've mishandled the impact, which we've terminalized to extinction. U.S. and China are in a competition for tech dominance that will determine superpower status for decades to come. Only increased immigration gives the U.S. edge it needs. Collins 18. To appropriately position U.S. policy for a technological race that will determine global influence for decades to come, technology is a winner-takes-all world. Chinese tech development is inevitable. The key is that U.S. staying ahead in innovation and AI development. Failure undermines U.S. military and economic power globally. Bay 18. China's growing technological process is a threat to U.S. and economic and military might. China's catching up in this tech race. This question is now whether tech firms in the United States will be able to keep up. For Beijing, as well as adversaries, AI will have implications in military as well as civilian life and will likely revolutionize both. U.S. military confrontation goes nuclear. Telling 18, as China's power has grown in recent years, so too has the risk of nuclear war with the United States. The prospect of a military confrontation resulting from an example from a Chinese campaign against Taiwan no longer seems implausible, and the odds of such confrontation going nuclear are higher than most policymakers and analysis think. Conventional warfare would be a potential receipt for a nuclear escalation. China, by contrast, not only has nuclear weapons, it also has intermingled them with the conventional military force. Its consequences for the region and world would be devastating, as long as the United States and China continue to pursue grand strategies that is likely to endure. Answer 2, overpopulation. No link. High immigration populations do not lead to increased consumption rates. Madrid 10. Cities with large immigrant populations do not have the highest levels of greenhouse gas emissions. Resident density and available of public transit are reasons for a city's low per capita footprint. Those characteristics are found in a large cities and immigrant-rich neighborhoods. I'm going to turn this, but I'm not going to actually read the rest of this card. My opponent uses a climate change argument saying that overpopulation will cause climate change. And my plan actually solves this by producing electric vehicles. We're solving for a major part of the CO2 emissions being cut. And we're also solving for the nuclear war aspect, because if China does initiate nuclear war, it would only worsen our current climate. Also, their Barron 20 card is irrelevant because it was when Trump was in office and Biden isn't now in office, so this shouldn't even be considered. And then there was really no link between the backlog and then the violence that was happening. So I just want you to completely ignore the impacts of the structural violence that they declared, because like I said, there is no actual court backlog happening in regards to my plan in particular. That is why you will be voting for the F today, because it's really just the best thing for the greater good of the whole entire world. Thank you so much.
Okay, I think I need to get my updated doc on the thing, so let me go ahead and do that. So I added one more.
I'm sorry, who just said that?
Me, Melanie.
Oh, okay, cool. You have prep time left if you want to take it.
I think I'm okay.
Okay. So you're just uploading a doc?
Yeah, I just uploaded it. Do you guys see it?
Is it called Extra Neg Stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm very good with my title.
All right. Tell me about the order.
All right. So we are going to go more on their case, and then my case, and then voters.
When you say their case, are you talking about your solvency dump, or are you going to be more about their, is it specifically about their case?
Yeah, I have 6 like attacks on their case, I guess you could say. And then, yeah.
All right, I'll flow you that on my solvency dump page.
Okay. Everybody ready?
Oh wait, no, I have a question. Are they brand new attacks or are they extensions? Because that will depend where I change where I flow them.
No, you're good. I do have some extensions because I brought up some of the cards in my speech before. So the things that I think I brought up that I'll be extending is my attack on her solvency. I brought up the Wadha 09 card, and then the Bailey 18 card. I think those
Hold on. So you're starting there?
Well, I'm going to be starting from the top. So, and I have it just in order going down her case.
Okay. I will flow you in my solvency dump page. If you could be if it's the same argument that you're extending or expanding on, just be really clear what you're connecting to.
Okay, will do.
Okay.
Sorry about that confusion.
It's okay.
All right, so with that, are we all good to start? Okay, I assume silence means a yes.
Yes.
Okay. So with that, I first would like to start off on their plan. They talk about how they're going to be removing these lines, but we need to actually look at the fact that this is extremely problematic because they're just removing, and what are they going to do at that point? Are they removing it and replacing it with something? This plan is very problematic, and you're actually going to want to look back to my AIC card in 2020 that's talking about how long it takes right now for anyone to go through the immigration process. So they have these grand plans to do this, but they're not taking into account the amount of time that this is going to happen. They even went through the process a little bit. It involves petitioning, and once you get accepted, you're not even technically a citizen. You still have to wait for a big process, and going through the courts is always going to take the longest, no matter what you're doing, especially in the terms of a pandemic. It is going to take way longer than they're contending, and we're not going to be seeing any of these impacts until we are finally over with this decades-long process. So with that, let's go on to their first solvency point. And this is where they are talking about the benefits basically of their plan. So first off, I would like to point back to my Wadha 09 card. This is going to be talking about how increasing the cap is actually not going to be bringing H-1B applicants because of the quality of life and economic stability. That has to be solved first. So respondents to the survey were not definitive on whether they return to the U.S. if given a visa and an equivalent job opportunity. Most likely the good job is the key here, as visa considerations do not weigh heavily in their decision to leave. Our findings clearly indicate that retaining highly skilled immigrant workers will require more than expanding the numbers of visas. This is crucial because they're contending that if we were to expand this, then we're going to instantly have high-skilled immigrant backlogs, discrimination, and economic competitiveness. It's going to be solving those issues, and that is just simply not true. It's not even going to be attracting it's not even going to be attracting the people that they want to attract here. It's going to be doing the opposite. So with that, let's move on to my Thompson 2017 card, which is showing that H-1B visas benefit tech companies who underpay immigrants compared to what they wouldn't pay an American worker. This restrains wage growth across the board. When technology firms hire foreign workers, they often pay them less than what they would theoretically have paid an American. This leads to both lower pay for workers across the company and higher profits for the owners and investors. The H-1B program is a scheme to reduce wages and increase profits, which has been clearly remarketed as a paean to multiculturalism and a win-win for American consumers and American inclusivity. H-1B visas crowded out employment for other workers and led to lower average employee earnings and higher firm profits. I think we get the point, so we're going to move on. And they have no solvency here. This plan does not solve for the labor shortage for low-skilled workers, which crushes economic growth, and this was Goodrich in 2008. Despite technological advancements, the economy will require human bodies. Technology cannot replace farmers, builders, janitors, mechanics, or innumerable other jobs essential to the American economy. Unfortunately, the employment-based immigration immigrant visa system only offers one option for low-skilled workers. That sole preference category furnishes visas for 5,000 workers, but the U.S. economy may need as many as 500,000 low-skilled workers. So we're not even going to be able to process all of the people that we do need in this time. So they're not actually going to be solving for any of the impacts here because we're not going to have this simply in time. And so let's move on to the my Lever 04 card, and this is going to be touching up on their onto some of their other points. The affirmative immigration reform leaves behind the social intervention necessary for the movement to be successful. Welfare, income, and employment. These are all alternative causes that thump the plan, and this is Lever 04. The impact of anti-discrimination provisions is not as simple as that. Even with the enactment of a reasonable accommodation duty, even the mandatory provision of reasonable accommodations, employment with persons who do not have disabilities. For those people who do benefit from the American with Disabilities Act, enforcement of its non-discrimination duties is far from certain and is unreliable in instances of hidden discrimination, the use of stereotypes. So they're still not going to have a good workplace, and they're still not going to be put in good situations here. And that card is kind of just explaining that we have to solve these problems first before we can start taking people in. And that is why this plan is inherently problematic. So let's go on to their big point that's about China and how we need to start doing this so we can get our global leadership back. But we're going to refer to my Bailey 18 card, which is showing that it's actually going to be beneficial because we're bringing global leadership to solve climate change, disease prevention, and non-proliferation. And all of these do cause extinction. So this is very important to have. And this is Jing from the China Foreign Affairs IR Director in 15. The China threat theory has been constantly hyped. A powerful China has never been posed a threat to the peace and stability, but instead it's created a positive influence. We're going to go ahead and skip the rest of that card just for the sake of time. And then they also talked about AI, and AI militarization causes escalation regardless of who leads it. So regulation is the only effective means of preventing conflict. This is Johnson in 2020. AI augmented conventional capabilities would exacerbate the inadvertent escalation by commingling nuclear and strategic non-nuclear weapons. And once again, we're going to be skipping that as well. Let's just put it out there that this is not going to be an issue. And then they talk about nuclear stuff, and China has a no first use policy as detailed in my card here. And so their impacts of nuclear proliferation, it's not going to be materializing. It's not going to happen. They're convoluting this big scary thing. And then they also attacked my case saying that that you cannot let my cards about the past presidency hold any weight, but we still need to, because anything that a president does lasts for years and years and years. And then they also said to drop my impacts of systemic violence, but we really shouldn't, because this is real trauma suffering that these real people are suffering. And this is what happens when people are in immigration cases for years. So let's go on to the two voter issues. Solvency. I've showed you that the app is doing more harm than good, because we're just going to have people in court cases for years and years and years. And then secondly, the impacts. If you want to extend all of my cards, we need to address problems at home first, so that these immigrants will actually have a good permanent home here in the United States. They exploit laborers, and they don't solve any of the impacts that they're alluding to. Thank you.
All right, I don't have any prep time left, so I am ready for my 3-minute speech. If everyone else is ready.
No, not yet. If you can give me the order first.
Okay, awesome. I am just going to be kind of addressing, I guess, all that solvency dump, and then going on case.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm going to be starting then in 3, 2, 1. So I just wanted to start off by saying the H-1B cards that are presented in the last speech are new arguments, and I hope you flowed that on your flow sheet. My plan is just not problematic. The current backlog is a problem, and we actually both agreed on that. My plan solves for this backlog, though, and like I said before in my last speech, that we do not go through the court backlog system. So all of those claims are in their speech are actually irrelevant. My plan actually would help these people come into the United States faster, because it's removing all these restrictions that keep the backlog from happening. So basically, the thing that would crush our economic growth is if we didn't take action. I would give evidence for this, but this was also brought up new in the NC or NR. China's rise is not beneficial. In their Jing 16 card, they didn't prove the extinction claim it says it does. If you go back and read that, it made really bold extinction claims that are not anything what the card has to say. It is clear that leaving the current immigration restrictions in place would be extremely harmful to the U.S. as well as the rest of the world. We are controlling that the current employment-based immigration system is severely broken. America needs high-skilled immigrants that would bolster semiconductor industry so we would remain on top. If America's semiconductor industry does not remain on top, we put U.S. national security at risk, along with losing global hegemony. With evidence of China producing shaky microchips, America will not be able to protect itself from its enemies. If China takes leadership, there is a guaranteed nuclear escalation, which would cause global extinction. Additionally, the semiconductor industry is key to producing electric vehicles, which would help the United States reduce our emissions. It's clear that for climate change to be averted, which in the status quo it will not be, the reduction of these electric vehicles are crucial. The climate crisis is a growing concern and it needs to be handled immediately. With the climate only worsening, it is clear that nuclear escalation would just worsen the climate and lead to global extinction. Preventing nuclear war and climate change outweighs on terms of impact. And it's obvious that the
Hello? What the F?
say anyway. I was just like concluding it.
Live streaming is on.
Scared me. Yeah, you can just cut it there. That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Cool. Okay, cool. Give me a moment.
Okay.
Okay. I am going to need you both to stick close because I'm going to need help figuring out what's going on with these cards. Let's go ahead and start with the Zhang 15. This was read from this in the second round. Do I want that card? I don't know. I just need to know, you cut that card. I need to know where you cut it.
Oh, that was Melanie's, right?
Yeah. Or did you cut it?
I'm sorry, which card?
Zhang 15. I might be mispronouncing that.
Was that in case or?
This was in your extra neg stuff.
Okay, hang on, let me go look. Okay. Oh, yeah, it's.
So what I need from you when you cut the card, that means you didn't finish reading it. What I need from you is, where did you cut the card? Like, what did you read up until?
I read up until peace and stability, but instead it has created a positive influence.
Okay, cool.
I just skipped like 2 sentences.
Yeah, it's a short card. No worries.
Also, I just want to say I appreciate how much you flow because I've never had a judge like try so hard to keep a flow organized. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think. Thank you. Yeah, this was not. Yeah. Yeah. I will talk about my flow, I think, in a moment after I finish going through things. Okay. Okay, the labor stuff, the exploited labor arguments, I have them from your second speech. I'm looking for them in your first speech. This is for
Yeah.
Nick.
I believe I like really fast just said like I talked about that first card and I said the Thompson 17 card will be going on to that second speech because I had like 20 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I remember using that. Okay, cool. Action accept. Your Bailey 18, where would I find that in the file?
Okay, I believe it is. Oh man, I hope I included it. Okay, I'm not seeing it. Let me grab it really fast because I had to redo this document a couple times. I think it just got lost in the middle of me doing that.
I don't think I understand. If it's not in the file.
Well, I have like a couple different versions of that document. I think I uploaded the wrong one because
So to clarify, are you saying that you didn't read it or that you read it and you didn't share it?
I read it and I thought it was in the one that I uploaded, but I guess it is not. I can share it now if you would like.
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
Thank you.
I did read from it in my very first speech, though, just very fast, though.
Yeah, I remember. You know what? Let me go ahead and look. Don't give me the card yet. Was it in the disad proper or was it on the case stuff?
I think it was in the case stuff. It was just like when I really fast started going through some stuff that she talked about.
Okay. I don't think I'm gonna be looking at it. Okay.
Okay.
This is the second page. Okay, that's Goodrich. That's okay. I uh-oh. So the decision, oh, I see what happened. Okay, hold on. Oh, that's not the name. It's fine. I misspelled the name of your Wahada 9 card. Sorry about that. Okay, so really quick, because I have to get going and I'm sure y'all need a break as well. This is one of those, some things that novices do is you read a bunch of cards and you don't stop to work with the argument or contextualize or expand on the arguments you have. Yeah, I agree with the AF's point that the stuff, most of the stuff coming out of your second speech is new. So we'll just go to the streets. The disad. The AF, I think, has good argument responses to the disad. And I needed responses to hold on to that disad. This is the no link, immigration visa, and immigration court are two different things. This is the decreasing caps. This is the I think it's Shaw 20. The decreasing caps risk of equals the risk of solving for green card backlog. So I give AF the no link, and then the rest of Neg, the rest of your arguments are solvency and mitigation and solvency and case attacks. The solvency mitigation that is your strongest card, and by just because I think I don't think Neg, or I don't think AF responds to it, or if they do, it's not quite well. Is this the what? And I might be mispronouncing his name. I apologize. I'm looking for my notes. Wahada 09, which is the cap. Increasing the cap does not necessarily increase the HB1 visas. That's defense, though. That means this thing was supposed to be super awesome, do lots of things. It's going to do less things, but that doesn't take out the argument. It doesn't make the argument like necessarily a bad thing. In terms of the two Trump cards, I agree with the AF that this is new, and I mean not new, too old, and so not relevant. I would need more work explaining why. I think you gave me some. Neg, you gave me some little short answers like, oh, it's in the last year's presidents matter, but it wasn't enough. The systemic card, I understood that as a framing card for the court's disad. Because the court's disad was no linked, then I don't look at that card or that argument. The concert... I don't really have a good response to. So the consumption kills the environment, I think, is a good argument. AF makes responses. I don't really have a response. This is where I said I would prefer, instead of you reading new cards, you explain why your cards are better, why what's going on with your arguments that make them better, instead of moving into this labor argument that this hurts labor, exploits labor. The exploiting labor argument is kind of cool. I like it. It is not a good argument in this round because it's too late. That needed to come out of your first speech. Yeah, I think that's all the arguments. AF extends case. So yeah, I vote AF. Questions?
I don't think so. That was a really good round. Thank you so much for all your feedback. I appreciate it.
Cool. Best of luck. Your novices, you've got. I think both of you have an excellent future. Sorry, I've been set call, so future is a problem. But lots of potential in the present. Let's say that.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, best of luck in the rest of the tournament.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Melanie.
Yeah, thank you too.